Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to take a look at another Toyway Walking with Dinosaurs figure. This is the other of the newest figures from the Toyway line to be added into my collection, as it is the Liopleurodon. This is one of the hardest to find Walking with Dinosaurs figures that there is. I say one of because we do have the Ornithocheirus out there, which is probably the hardest figure, maybe one of the hardest dinosaur related figures in general. Well, I guess prehistoric as it's a pterosaur, but definitely one of the hardest figures in general to find at all. One I'll probably never be able to obtain into my collection, and that's just something that I'm unfortunately going to have to live with. However, this one being one of the most rare was a very exciting addition to my collection, as this as well is a figure I did not ever expect to have the opportunity to purchase, because most times when I see it going up for an auction or anything on eBay, it's usually in like the $100 to $200 range, which is just crazy. So I was lucky enough to be able to score this figure for around the $50 range from a good friend of mine, and I was incredibly grateful for his generosity to offer me something like this that is so rare for such a great deal, which in turn has now allowed us to have it here to review for you guys. So let's go ahead and check this figure out up close right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Liopleurodon, you can see a lot of really nice texturing has been put into the sculpt of this. It's another one of those instances where you would expect it to be very smooth and not really have much texturing to it, but the Toyway series here has found a great way to apply some beautiful texturing to the body of the Liopleurodon and somehow still making it look very nice, very natural and realistic. They've done a great job as far as the paint application as well. As you can see that the paint application is very reminiscent to what it looks like in the actual Walking with Dinosaurs series, which in my opinion is a very appealing look for the Liopleurodon, so they've done a great job in that area as well. You can see the teeth are painted pretty nicely, sculpted quite nicely. There's a little tiny bit of like extra paint there that's a little bit sloppy in the front of the mouth, but nothing that I would say is even remotely close to bad. For the most part, the teeth look really quite nice in the paint aspect, and you can also see the tongue inside the mouth and everything. Fairly nice, realistic looking coloration for the inside of the mouth. The paint is a little sloppy in there. You can see that right there, as the pinkish coloration doesn't run all the way over to the teeth. You can see it doesn't really do that over here either, so maybe it's meant to be that way, but I would have preferred that it actually ran all the way over, but the mouth doesn't articulate and doesn't open, so it's not really a big complaint as far as I'm concerned, because it's not an area you really see. The eyes are painted with a yellow. There's a tiny hint of sloppiness, not really sloppiness, but just a little bit too much paint, I would say, added to the eye area as it kind of floods the eye socket, which is something that is an area of these figures that you often see that kind of paint applied to it, as they just apply, I think, a little too much paint to the eyes, but it doesn't really look bad. It definitely looks good for the most part. Just could have been a little more precise, but you can see a very nice gloss coat is added to the pupil. Very nice black pupil for the Liopleurodon as well. And then you can, of course, see the black running along the top and then kind of leaking down in certain areas. And the white underbelly, which is a very realistic coloration, I would say, for an animal like this. As we start to move back into the neck, you can see some nice creasing going on right here in this vicinity in the skin of the Liopleurodon. You can see again that the paint application continues to look really beautiful as far as the way it's applied. It looks really smooth, really natural. A very, very good job as far as that goes. As you lead out into the flippers here, you can see kind of like some creases and stuff going on right there, and some more incredible texturing has been applied to the flippers. You can see it looks really, really beautiful, very lifelike. That paint follows through to the underside of the Liopleurodon's flippers as well, really providing again a very consistent paint application for the figure. The texturing continues to look nice throughout the entire stomach, and they've done a great job of really nicely portraying the Liopleurodon from the Walking with Dinosaurs series. Like, it really looks picture perfect. You can see out here on the flipper, it looks really good as well, and you can see some like slits in the fins of the Liopleurodon. You see that up here as well, so you have a very realistic and lifelike appearance to it as far as that goes, because that would definitely be something you would probably see on a real living Liopleurodon. And then moving out here into the tail, again, you can continue to see how nice it looks in the detailing aspect, but also the paint application aspect. And you have a few different tones of color included. You have like this kind of like a white. It's pretty bright as far as the white goes, but it's not that bright in comparison to this white. This is definitely a brighter white that we see up here on the back, and then you also have the black. So it's a few nice variations of color, and I think it's really beautifully done as far as the actual paint scheme that the Walking with Dinosaurs series went with on the Liopleurodon, and it's also beautifully brought to life here on this figure. Now this side, you're not really going to see anything different in comparison to what we had seen on the previous side. Maybe a little bit of difference in the paintwork, because you can see again the designs and stuff on the flippers. It's a little different compared to what we see on the previous side, but the figures, as far as these Toyway Walking with Dinosaurs figures, are in a totally neutral position, so you don't really see any difference in the poses and positions of the body on one side compared to the other. It's just totally neutral, but you can also see that the underside sports, again, a beautifully textured appearance. Nothing really going on paint-wise under here other than the white, and then of course that black that kind of shows up on the flippers. And you can see one little area of black right there, but for the most part it's just primarily the white coloration, and it looks really, really nice the way that they've applied all of the paint. Again, a super flashy but super realistic looking paint scheme for an absolutely gorgeous figure. Now you see there are some pegs here with the Liopleurodon. These pegs are actually the pegs from the recent PNSO figures, but I thought they worked perfect to kind of hold this guy up for us to look at right now. So if you do search this figure out, don't expect it to come with these pegs, because again, these pegs are from the PNSO figures. But regardless, as far as a size goes, for a length on the Liopleurodon, you are looking at a little over the 9¼ inch range, or about the 23½ centimeter area. And I mean, there's not really much else we can do. The height would be very small, and of course we'd have to take the figure then off of these stands and put it down on the ground to really get an accurate height. But otherwise, there's not much going on size-wise for a figure like this. So for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Toyway Liopleurodon. And you can see in comparison to these guys that the figure, although sporting a pretty decent size, isn't overly large. Being a Liopleurodon, you would expect it to be very large, but the Toyway figures, as far as the Walking with Dinosaurs series goes, they're fairly similarly sized for the most part to each other. Again, there's no real drastic difference in size, and you can see that this guy here, this Liopleurodon, is a prime example of that, because this is obviously the figure that you would expect to be the largest of the Walking with Dinosaurs series, and it's actually not. It's probably about the same size, I would say, as the others that are included in the line, except maybe a few, because we have ones like the Postosuchus and stuff that are a little bit smaller, but for the most part, it's very evenly sized as far as all of the figures go. So this Walking with Dinosaurs Toyway Liopleurodon is a dream come true, if you ask me. A figure that, again, I was pretty confident I would never own, similar to the Ornithocheirus, so I shouldn't say now that I won't ever own it, although there's a good chance because that figure is just disgustingly rare. But I may one day stumble upon one, and that's kind of like this, where I just never thought I would get a hold of one, and then one day a listing had shown up on Facebook of one of my friends that were selling one, so I jumped on it right away, and lo and behold, it is now here in my collection. And I could not, again, be happier about it, because as time goes on, I'm slowly piecing my Toyway Walking with Dinosaurs figures collection together, although I do still have quite a few yet that I have to get a hold of, but at least this one of the rarest of all, is taken care of, is now included in my collection, so that's one area of my collection that I won't have to worry about so much as far as the really rare figures go. But this Liopleurodon, again, it is just beautiful, if you ask me, really nicely portraying the version from the film, from the documentary of Walking with Dinosaurs from BBC. It's beautifully done, very nicely painted as well, to really nicely match up to that look as far as what the Liopleurodon looked like in the film as well. Detail-wise, it's really quite impressive. There is some nice detail found on it, especially the textured appearance to the skin. I mean, you don't see too much as far as movement or anything going on. You don't see skin wrinkles or anything really like that, because the animal is just basically in a neutral position. It's facing straight forward, just kind of swimming along, I guess you could say, maybe even gliding along because of the neutral position. but you're not really going to see too much as far as movement displayed in the figure, so that's something you kind of don't see in any of the Walking with Dinosaurs Toyway figures. So that's not like a bad thing, it's just something you wouldn't expect to see because of the neutral position. But other than that, the detailing aspect when it comes to like the texturing and just generally like the overall shape of the body and the skull shape you can see nicely portrayed through the skin of the figure. It's just really nicely done in pretty much every aspect as far as the figure goes. The paint application as well is really beautifully done. They did a great job of naturally applying a pretty intricate and flashy looking paint scheme as far as this Liopleurodon goes, and the paint application all looks like actual body color, not paint on a figure. And for something that has as cool of a paint scheme as this has, I'm really impressed with how natural they've managed to make the actual application of the paint look. So as a whole, just like pretty much every one of these Walking with Dinosaurs figures go, this thing is beautiful, and again, something I am so happy to finally be able to add to my collection. A holy grail, I would say, as far as figures that I've really been wanting for a very long time. This Liopleurodon definitely hits the top of that list, and I could not be happier. Seeing it here in person and having it in my collection, it is just one of the most incredible pieces that I have in my collection. So if you would like to pick one up, these are the type of figures that you're kind of going to have to just continuously scour over eBay and search one out when they do pop up, pick it up pretty quick because they usually sell pretty fast and are very hard to come by. So again, I will try to find a listing for you, but the chances of me actually finding one are pretty slim. So if there is no link in the description, I do apologize for that. Just make sure you keep checking eBay and pretty much anywhere else that you can sometimes find older used figures, and you may stumble upon one. And if you do, definitely pick it up because it is beautiful. And otherwise, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.